Hello, everybody. Gonna give it a couple minutes, but thank you for joining us. Still got some people trickling into the weight room. But for those of you who are on right now, what you see on the screen is our proposal development workshop series. So we're at number 8 right now, persuasive proposal writing. If this is your first time attending, thank you for coming. And if this isn't your first time attending, welcome back. We're excited to have you. But you can register for future PDWs. That's PDW 10 through 16 at that link, funding.asu.edu/events. These are also recorded. So if you can't attend and you sign up, you'll get the recording in your inbox. But we also do post all of our recordings to our website. So you'll be able to see all of those and past recordings as well. I think we're slowing down here. You'll see a couple people trickling through, but I'm going to get us started. And then as people trickle in through, they'll just catch up. So thank you for attending today's workshop, everybody. We are very excited to have you joining us. As I mentioned, this is recorded. And so you'll get the recording in your inbox, as well as access to all of our other recordings that we've done for these PDWs as well. All right, and this workshop, this is PDW number 8. So this is persuasive proposal writing. I'm Emily Wilcoxon. I'm the Assistant Director for Research Development at the Knowledge Enterprise. And I'm joined by Laura York, my lovely colleague here, who is a Proposal Manager in Research Development. And we have a lovely and exciting agenda for you guys today. This is our agenda. So Laura will start with the art of rhetoric, which is a really great and fun, interesting concept. And then I will transition and go into some concrete persuasive proposal writing tips and tricks. And with that, I'm going to kick us off and hand it over to Laura, who will get us started.
All right. All right. Thanks, Emily. And hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. As Emily said, my name is Laura York. I am a proposal manager in the Research Development Unit in Knowledge Enterprise. And I am also by training a historian. So I like to look at history when I'm going to talk about things. So I'll be speaking today on the art of rhetoric, which is an ancient art, and how mastering it will help you write more effective funding proposals. Next slide, please. All right. We know that many scientists and academics struggle with grant writing. Why is this? It's because when what you were taught about how to write for an academic audience won't work when you're trying to get a sponsor to fund your project. A funding proposal is an argument at base. It is not a journal article. It is not a report. It requires a different approach to writing. Your goal is not merely to communicate information, but also to convince the reader to take a specific action. You're making an argument that the reviewer should recommend your project for funding because it's exciting and because you and your research team are the best possible people to make the project a smashing success and help the sponsor fulfill its mission. A proposal, because of this, is not the place to be modest. It's not the place to undersell your expertise, your ideas, your capabilities. You don't want to come across as arrogant or entitled to their money in your proposal, but you do want to come across as confident and assertive of your team's capability and the novelty and importance of your work. Next slide. The challenge of how to persuade someone with words has been studied for thousands of years. In fact, it was addressed at length around 2,300 years ago by the Greek philosopher and scientist Aristotle. His book On the Art of Rhetoric presents a comprehensive framework for persuading a listener that is still very relevant and effective today. Now called the rhetorical triangle and often applied to written argument in addition to speech, The framework comprises three major elements that are critical to making a persuasive argument. These three are ethos, the appeal to trust and credibility, pathos, the appeal to the reader's emotion, and logos, the appeal to reason. I'm going to discuss each of these elements briefly in turn. Next slide, please. First is ethos, the appeal to trust and credibility. Next slide. So Aristotle wrote that persuasion is achieved when the speech makes us think the speaker credible. You could be proposing the most innovative and brilliant solution to a pressing problem, but if the reviewers don't see you as credible, there's no way they're going to agree to fund you. So, what comprises this trust and credibility? Three elements in this are your expertise, your depth of knowledge and practical experience, your credentials, your training by a respected institution, and your ethics, knowing and following the rules of good scientific practice. Next slide. All right. So, who needs to be credible? Essentially, every person and institution affiliated with or supportive of your project, as well as the authorities cited as support for your ideas, and the journals who've published your work and other research on this topic. Next slide. From my experience as a proposal manager and a research administrator, I can say that very often proposal teams view required biographical documents as having minor importance in a proposal. But the biographical documents are actually critical to establishing your authority and your credibility and to building the reviewer's trust in you, which is your goal here. Demonstrating experience, leadership, credentials, a record of funding and publication, along with letters of support as testimonials when allowed by the sponsor. All of these are going to go a long way to establishing ethos in the reviewer's mind. Next slide, please. You should also try to appeal to ethos and building trust within your research strategy or project plan in addition to those biographical documents. You'll want to cite authorities and experts whose work supports your own, maybe refute counter-arguments, theories, or findings by others who work in your area but disagree with your conclusions, to describe your experience and prior work, and maybe something you weren't thinking of. One of the ways to appeal to trust is to use correct grammar and syntax. Here's a quote from the Harvard Business Review, speaking of credentials, about this. People jump to all kinds of conclusions about you when they read documents you've written. They decide how smart, how well organized, and how trustworthy you are. So please take the time to edit and proofread your documents before you submit. Send your proposal to a colleague to have them read it over for things as simple as, formatting, grammar, spelling. Or you can also submit your work to one of the editors who work in my unit, research development, before you submit to sponsor. You want to be confident and authoritative, though not arrogant, in your tone. You don't want to sound like you think they're entitled to their money, but you do want to make the impression that you are worthy of their money. Next slide. Here's just a few examples of the deployment of ethos in research proposal strategies that I've seen. Note that the bolded phrases are not the point of the sentence that they appear in, but they do help establish your credibility while you're making a larger point. This is phrases such as a leader in the field of sustainable forestry, 3 decades of experience in aging research, ASU's acknowledged leadership, a noted expert in animal pharmacology, phrases like that. So you're not making it the entire point of the page or the paragraph or even the sentence, but you're reinforcing the idea that you are trustworthy, you have credibility, and that the reviewer will note this. So that's my very brief jump into ethos. Next, we're going to turn to the second element of the rhetorical triangle, which is pathos. Next slide, please. Pathos is the appeal to the reader's emotion, to their values, beliefs, worries, hopes, all of that. Next slide. So, why appeal to emotion? Aristotle wrote that, quote, persuasion may come to the listeners when the speech stirs our emotions. Our judgments, when we are pleased and friendly, are not the same as when we are hostile. Pathos draws on the reviewer's emotions to persuade them to support your project. It's not just for appeals to charitable causes or political speeches. Next slide. And at this point, you're thinking, wait, isn't emotion completely inappropriate in a research proposal? No, it is not. That's because scientists and academics in general are trained to value objectivity and distance ourselves from our work. But distance and objectivity, while often appropriate for an article or a report, are not appropriate. Well, they are appropriate in a research proposal, but they are not sufficient. A proposal, as I said earlier, is a marketing document. So not only are emotional appeals appropriate for many proposals, but also including such appeals may go a long way to winning over the reviewer by connecting your project, your work, with their values, their beliefs, and their priorities. Next slide. The goal of pathos. You want to try to make the reviewer feel appropriate emotions when they're reading your proposal, such as concern about the problem that you want to solve, maybe anger, sympathy, sadness, compassion for those impacted by the problem or the need, excitement that your project will help solve that problem, admiration for your team and institutions, maybe frustration at the slow pace of progress towards a solution to fix the problem that the sponsor is trying to work on. So make sure the feelings you're trying to evoke are connected to the benefit that your project offers to the sponsor for solving the problem that they are giving money to solve. And Emily will talk more about benefits on her section. Yes. Next slide. Thank you. All right, stop there. Including elements of pathos in your research, in your proposal strategy, or other components should include conveying your own passion for your project. Judgment and willingness to engage are influenced by emotion. So use this fact to your advantage because enthusiasm is contagious. If you don't come across as emotionally invested in your work, your reviewer probably won't be either. Try to help the reviewer connect to your work and see it through your eyes. Other ways to include pathos are putting a face on the problem or the need, illustrating why there's a need for your research. There's several ways to do this. Specific examples of the problem to personalize it, testimonials from beneficiaries of your past successes, brief anecdotes that demonstrate the problem or your solution, quotations from those who will benefit from the research or from people who support it. And lastly, you can use formatting of your research plan document to help make sure your appeal to pathos is clear. Try using call-out boxes, underlining, different text color, highlighting, all of that to draw the reviewer's attention to these moments of pathos and help them remember why your project is important and why you are the best person to help them solve it. All right, next slide, please. The last element of pathos is word choice. Strong dramatic adjectives like these will convey your excitement and conviction about your proposal. They will help convince the reviewer that the problem is urgent and that your solution is timely, expert, and crucial. All right, next slide. So here highlighted in red are a few examples of ways that grant applicants that I've worked with have appealed to pathos by putting a face on the benefits of the project and by providing quotations testifying to the value of the work. I won't read through these necessarily. Yeah, let's see. Next slide, please. All right. So let's compare two versions of a problem statement. Annually, an estimated 316,000 women are diagnosed with breast cancer. It's clear, it's grammatically correct, and it states a fact. Compared to This year alone, 316,000 American women will receive the devastating diagnosis of breast cancer. This is an appeal to the heart as well as to the mind. And that's my brief discussion on pathos. Next, we're going to talk about the third element of the rhetorical triangle, which is logos. Logos is the persuasive technique of appealing to reason, judgment, and logic. Next slide. So why appeal to reason? Aristotle wrote, quote, "Persuasion is effected through the speech itself when we have proved a truth by means of our persuasive argument." So emphasis on proof. The appeal to reason includes all of the facts, statistics, and data you feature in your proposal, including your graphics such as your tables, your charts, and diagrams. It includes the logical flow of your argument and how your activities will lead to the outcomes the sponsor wants. Logos also includes the overall plausibility of your plan and its potential to resolve the problem that the sponsor is addressing. Next slide. Logos is probably the most familiar to you of the three elements we're talking about today. Ways to use logos in your proposal strategy include concise writing. The wordier your sentences and paragraphs are, the harder it is for a busy reviewer to stay focused on the logic of your argument. Analogies like the graphic shown here of the earth compared to a peach can show in a simple way the benefits of a proposal, relationship between its elements, or demonstrating the problem that you're trying to solve. A clear, simple outline. I urge you to create this long before you start writing anything. Section headers, which are very helpful in moving the reviewer from point to point and making it easy for them to go back if they want to review something. And carefully structured paragraphs, topic sentence, explanation, then evidence, then a concluding sentence. And always finish with a transition to your next paragraph to keep the logical flow of your argument obvious to the reviewer. Next slide, please. So, maximizing logos with a logic model. I recommend creating a logic model very early in your proposal process to maximize your application of logos. So what is it? A logic model is a roadmap for your project plan, a visual of the components of the project and how they're connected. And I'll show you one in our next slide in a moment. It summarizes your plan and your intended results. Some sponsors will require logic models as part of the proposal, but even if it is not required in your specific solicitation you're responding to, a logic model can be extremely helpful in helping you plan out the writing process so that you create a very logical argument throughout your documents. Important benefits that a logic model can bring include helping ensure that the entire proposal team is aligned in the mission and the plans, that you've listed outcomes that justify every proposed activity, which means every proposed cost, and that the broader impact of your project is connected to those activities and those outcomes. So let's take a look at an example, sort of a template for a logic model. Next slide, please. In this sample schematic, you can see the flow of the components of a project. From the inputs on the left, that is the resources that are needed to complete the work, such as personnel, facilities, supplies, through the outputs, which include your activities, for example, interviewing key informants, to your outcomes, which are the direct result of those activities, as well as your broader and sort of long-term impacts. In a logic model, you can also identify the assumptions that you're making about how the project will work, external factors such as potential risks that may impact your success. Don't reinvent the wheel would be my final comment on logic models. There are many, many, many of these templates available on the internet. Some are much more complex even than this one. Some are simpler. But the general idea, if you start with one of these and you know that if you can fill out this logic model, that you have a logical argument that you can make and expand on in your proposal documents. All right, next slide. All right. Recap. So to summarize this very brief discussion of the art of rhetoric, I urge you to try very hard to include all three appeals in your proposal to make it the most persuasive it can be. As you've probably guessed, I encourage you to use a pathos element strategically. Don't try to include pathos appeals in every single sentence. Use those elements to highlight the importance of the problem your work will solve, whereas logos is going to appear everywhere. That's the logic of your argument. And ethos will appear in all of your biographical documents and sprinkled through your research strategy. Um, So a grant proposal should prioritize logos and ethos, but do not avoid strategically appealing to those readers' emotions to get them to care about the success of your project. And remember, do not write a proposal as you write journal articles and reports. You are selling your idea, and you need to make the reviewer agree that it is important and that it deserves to be funded. So don't ignore any of the three aspects of this triangle. Next, I'm going to turn it over to Emily, who will give you more specific tips and techniques for writing a persuasive proposal. All right, take it away, Emily.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Laura. I'm going to switch on over to how you take all of that and start crafting your proposal persuasively. And so we will revisit these topics a little bit and delve into the proposal making process and how to make it more persuasive. So the first thing that you want to do before you even start thinking about being persuasive and writing is you want to get yourself organized. So the most important step is to create a proposal plan. This is going to set yourself up for success. And to do that, what we like to do is create these three things. It's a checklist, a calendar, and a shell document. And so start by reading the solicitation very carefully and pulling out all of the requirements, the review criteria, and the required documents. And that will become your checklist and that will drive your timeline. That gives you enough time to be strategic and think through these and not so that you're rushing at the end. The shell documents, those are pre-formatted placeholders for each section, so you can kind of see the full proposal structure up front at like a bird's eye view. And if you want support on this, on creating a proposal plan, our office can support you on those large and strategic proposals, as well as the smaller ones on a consulting basis. So you can request proposal management support to help you build and manage this plan so you can focus on the ideas and science. But these are things that you can also do yourself. But essentially, strong proposals and persuasive proposals start with planning. And strong persuasive proposals also need to be compliant. So the first step to getting your proposal funded is to actually getting it read. And that really starts with compliance. If your proposal is not compliant, it may never even reach the reviewers, or if it does reach the reviewers, it'll be working against you. And back to your proposal plan, being compliant means being organized and to make sure that you're answering exactly what the solicitation is asking for, the headers, the order, the formatting, all of that is extremely important. And so, like I said, I recommend setting up a shell document, and that is the proposal template that kind of already includes the required suggested headings, the page limits, and the formatting rules. You can see our example shell document here. And one thing that we like to do, and I think that is a critical step to creating your shell document, is to go to the bottom of the solicitation where the review criteria typically are and directly input those into this template. That way, when you're thinking about responding and you're starting your writing process, you're writing to the review criteria as you write. And so the first start of being persuasive is being organized and being compliant. Next, you're going to want to make sure that you really understand your audience. So who is reading your proposal and why do they care and why should they care? Your proposal has likely a multitude of readers, and a big part of persuasion is understanding who they are and why they care. That's the pathos that Laura was talking about. So ask yourself, who is reading this? Is it a federal funder? Is it a foundation? Maybe it's a corporate sponsor. Those are all very different audiences with very different expectations and goals that they need to meet. And even at the individual level, your reader is likely a PhD level person, but expertise is usually very highly specialized. And you can't assume that your reviewer knows your subfield or why your approach is the obvious one. And even if they do understand your science, they may not even share your passion for it. So you really have to make the case for why it's important to them and why they should recommend it to the funder. And that goes back to the goals. So what do you want the reviewer thinking when they finish reading, and how does that align with what the funder is trying to achieve? Right. So this is a storyboarding process, and the brainstorming, the writing process. So now that you kind of have your plan and you understand your funder, you can start thinking about the story that you want to create. And you want to relate that story to the research that you did about the sponsor and to the specific solicitation that you were responding to. And so one really effective way to begin is not by going straight to the template or writing paragraphs, but by laying it out. And you can do that by starting with a logic model, like Laura suggested. That's a great first step. And once you have your logic model, you can try to structure it a brainstorming and storyboarding process. So what's your vision? What's new? Pull out some of the questions from the solicitation. So how will this work? Who's responsible for what? So you can really start getting to the nitty gritty of what your idea is. Oftentimes solicitations are already asking these questions. They're just kind of using a different language. And so this approach will really help you answer what the sponsor is specifically trying to get you to answer. It also breaks the proposal into really nice bite-sized chunks that makes the writing process feel more manageable and kind of ensures that you're being responsive to the funder's mission and guidelines. And so just once you've got that proposal plan in process, storyboarding, that logic model is a really great way to move into the writing process. Okay, now you can really talk about hooking the reviewer. This is when you can start getting into that draft in your proposal draft. And one of the most important parts of being persuasive is knowing how to hook the reviewer. This matters really most importantly in the very first encounter that the reviewer has with your proposal. You don't know how much time the reviewer has. They may be reading your proposal very carefully, or they may be skimming this on an airplane or at their kid's soccer game, so they might not have a lot of time. Either way, that opening section is doing a lot of work for you. And that first section can be oftentimes the reviewer decide whether this proposal is worth taking seriously. And in my experience reading proposals, I often see sometimes the core idea or the solution, the benefit, really kind of buried and not linked throughout the proposal. And this is your reminder that to bring that compelling part forward and kind of link it throughout your proposal. Because in many cases, if you haven't hooked your reviewer early enough, you might have lost them and they might be skimming your proposal with a certain attitude in mind. But the opposite is also true. If you hook them early on, you kind of turn them into a champion and someone who, while they're reading the rest of your proposal, is looking for reasons to support you as opposed not to support you. And that's just confirmation bias at work. That first impression that you make really kind of sets the tone for how they're going to read everything else. All right, and this is kind of a way to look at hooking the reviewer. This is a logical progression, an hourglass structure, and it maps really nice to this graphic here. But it starts kind of like your big ideas are at the top, and then you're going to get a little bit more specific, and then you're going to end a little bit more broader as well. So you start by naming that critical need. That's the problem that the funder cares about or would care about if they see it the way that you do. This is the broad, urgent, societal, significant challenge. And then you connect that to your larger goal that aligns with the funder's mission. After that, you're going to move into objectives. So why this problem exists, what's missing, why hasn't it been solved yet? That's kind of where you create the space for your specific contribution, and you move into the little bit more specific nitty-gritty. So this is the objectives of the behaviors that are going to be changed, the products that'll be creative, and you're pivoting from that problem and goal into action. So what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. So where you want to get really specific. So this is your expertise, your aims, your activities that are going to be done to meet your goals. This is also where I sometimes see more of negative reviews coming in. If it's not clear how the work will be done or how you are going to do what you say you're going to do, and if that doesn't translate to the broader impacts, they might not fund you. Also, if you don't explain really well why this team is the right team to do it, that also is sometimes where I see negative reviews come in. Finally, you're going to widen back out with the expected outcomes that clearly advance the funder's mission and then you want to connect it directly back to the original problem. And so this structure works because it kind of answers the big questions early on and states your goals, while logically going into the specifics and ending with impact. And then I just want to remind you to logically link your ideas throughout your proposal as you're writing. All right, and then leading with the benefit. So once you've drafted your proposal, a useful exercise is to go back and notice where your benefit statements are or where they're missing. Every part of your proposal probably has benefits, but reviewers don't always connect the dots for you, or what's obvious to you might not be always obvious to them. And so there are 4 kind of concepts that can help you surface and sharpen your benefit. So first, start by identifying your feature, what's unique to you. Is it your lab? Is it your data? Is it your expertise? And then how does that feature create an advantage, either in time, in money, or in risk? And then you can translate that advantage into the specific benefit that responds to the solicitation and the funder. And then you want to highlight throughout why that benefit, why your feature is a differentiator, and why is it unique to you? Why is it you that needs to be funded? And this works across different sections. So the broader impact section, the mentoring section, some of those supplemental documents as well. And kind of like I mentioned before, most people really lead with the problem, which is okay, especially if it's a large problem, but then they spend a lot of time there and bury the benefit. And adding the benefit up front and maybe in bold really helps the reviewer immediately understand why your section matters, why your study matters. All right, and I want to get kind of go out a little bit into layout and consistency. So when you're looking at your proposal and how you're laying it out, make sure it looks good. Remember that your reviewer is probably pressed for time, so you want to make it easy for the reviewer to find your main points. I also have really bad vision, so when I see like really little writing all clumped together and not a lot of white space, it gives me anxiety, and I'm sure your reviewers are maybe the same way. So use graphics, use headers, use bulleted list, and even callouts if you're allowed. Use colors if they're allowed, and anything that can really draw the reviewer's attention to the main points of your proposal, of your solution. I want to give a quick plug for graphics here. You'll see there's a really nice graphic and there's really nice callouts and tables. Using graphics to reinforce the message will direct the reader's eye to the important information. And it's also a great way if you can do an overview graphic to have the reader understand your overall proposal in one graphic. And we do have an upcoming PDW that will do a deep dive into proposal graphics. That is put on by our graphic designer, Vince. And so if you want to learn more about graphics, sign up for that PDW. All right, and now I'm going to end with arguably what I think is one of the most important things you can do for yourself, and that is seek feedback. I'm a very big advocate of getting feedback, and we institute in our proposal process. And I think every proposal should have some type of peer review or a person reviewing your proposal. I think persuasive proposals are built through feedback. And so you should build that into your writing process at multiple points. So early on, later, at any time you can get a couple different eyes on your proposal. Frequent reviews at multiple stages will just lead to a stronger proposal. And you can use peer groups, senior colleagues, even mentors to get their perspective and kind of even get their perspective to help interpret feedback from other reviewers. I actually have reached out to past awardees of grants just because that information is public, and I've had good feedback or good responses when I do a cold email to somebody who has been a previous awardee who is willing to read a proposal that I've put it together. And then once you get those critiques, practice responding to those. Try to be intentional about those comments and how you're responding. Don't respond to everything. You don't have to take everything to heart. Some of it doesn't need to be answered, but just kind of see if there's themes and what is most important to reply to. And just that kind of remember that review cycle will help sharpen your clarity and the impact of your proposal. All right, and so I'm going to end with this color review structure. This can be really helpful. This is what we do in proposal management. This comes from industry, so from the Association for Proposal Management, and it's kind of a best practice in industry. There are 4 different reviews, and they're different for every stage. Each of these colors has a different purpose, And you don't need to use all of them if you don't have time, but I'll kind of go through them. So the first is this pink team review. This is very early on. This would be the first review that you get. It's likely your storyboarding or your logic model, just getting feedback kind of on the overall storyline, the themes. Is it strategic? Does it make sense? That'll help you take that to the next level, which is that red team review. But first, the green team review is a budget review. And this is really a budget review that is about aligning the budget with what's in the proposal. So you want to read the proposal, you want to read the budget, and you want to make sure they align and that you're adequately connecting the proposal through the budget. Sometimes reviewers might read the budget first, actually, and then go back to the proposal, and you just don't know in what order that they're going to be reviewing. So you want to make sure that those align. And if you're going to do only one of these things, I would recommend it be the red team review. This is a near final draft, and about 75 to 80%, because you do want to give yourself time to incorporate these changes that you're given. But this is just a confirmation that the proposal contents are complete and compliant. The way that I like to run this is I like to send the 75, 80% draft to the reviewers that I've identified, usually about 3. I ask them kind of general questions. So what do you like about the proposal? 3 major things. What do you think could be improved, and anything else? And then if you can get those 3 reviewers in a meeting room in a Zoom to kind of discuss those so you can ask questions, it's a really great way to get feedback. And then your gold team review, that is those final like button checks 3 to 4 days prior to your submission, just to make sure that all final documents are complete. Check the grammar, check the formatting. You don't want to make any changes at this point in time. You should have already done your checks, but this is just to make sure that everything is in order and in line with what you need to submit to be compliant. And that is the last part of persuasive proposal writing. We're going to open it to questions, but I first want to bring this back up that we've got our next in the series is editing your proposal part 1 for logic and clarity. That's February 4th. And then following that, our last proposal, PDW, is May 20th. So we've got a few coming up, and we do record these if you miss one, but sign up and you'll get that recording in your inbox. And so with that, I'm going to stop sharing. And let me know if there's any questions. We're also always happy to take questions via email. If you guys have anything that you want to ask us, we're always available. I can put my email in the chat. But also research development at asu.edu is also available. So any questions that you have, we're available to answer. Okay, any questions? Or tips, if you guys have a tip that you didn't see and you want to share. All right, well, if not, you will get these slides in your email, as well as some other materials, but make sure to come to our next PDW, and we hope you all have a great day. Thank you so much.
Thank you.